Davian Hawley, acclaimed structural designer, felt a cold dread seize him as he sped through the city streets. Only moments before, he'd been immersed in the intricate plans for the prestigious lakeside terraces, a development poised to redefine his career. Then the piercing ring of his phone, Vera's frantic plea, "Davian, come back." Now, his grip tightened on the wheel. His luxury sedan skidded to a halt in the sweeping drive. A quartet of patrol vehicles, their lights pulsing an urgent rhythm, framed his glass and steel residence, the culmination of his most personal architectural vision. Lena, his 18-year-old daughter, her usually vibrant face stained with tears, rushed to meet him. "Papa, wait," she begged, clinging to his arm. "Let Mama tell you." He gently dislodged her grasp and moved swiftly indoors. The coppery scent of fresh blood assaulted him instantly. Crimson splattered across the minimalist white walls of his open-plan living space. Vera stood at its epicenter, shaking, her hands and silken blouse smeared with the stark color, a stoic silver-haired inspector standing beside her. "Mr. Hawley," the officer began, "I'm Inspector Theron. There's been a situation. Your wife." "I ended him, Davian." Vera's voice, raw and shrill, cleaved the air. "He forced his way in. He had a blade. I had no alternative." A form, partially veiled by a thermal blanket, lay motionless on the polished concrete floor. The implement, a heavy-bladed utility knife, now lay sealed in an evidence bag on the glass coffee table. "We're leaning towards self-defense," Inspector Theron stated. "The deceased is identified as Quentin Devereaux, known for prior convictions in burglary cases." Davian studied his wife, her usually direct, emerald gaze now evasive. A discordant note struck him. No signs of a breach, no shattered glass, no splintered wood. And Vera, the woman who recoiled at the sight of a housefly, had somehow subdued an assailant? As forensics teams moved methodically, a notification flickered on Vera's comm tablet resting on the console table by the entrance. Though he respected her privacy fiercely, an instinct, cold and sharp, urged him to read it. From Paxton. "You all right? What occurred? Contact me immediately." Paxton Wyatt. A knot formed in Davian's stomach. Paxton, the celebrated landscape architect, a figure of effortless charm whom Davian had engaged half a year prior for the Lakeside Terraces project. The very same Paxton who had spent an unusually prolonged period collaborating with Vera on the design of their multi-tiered garden. Later that evening, after Lena had finally drifted into a restless sleep and Vera had succumbed to the effects of a prescribed tranquilizer, Davian retreated to his private studio. With the same exacting focus that defined his award-winning designs, he began to dissect the fragmented reality. Digital bank ledgers exposed a series of baffling transactions. Call logs revealed a relentless exchange of messages between Vera and Paxton. And most incriminating, a clandestine email account outlined their scheme to abscond. But the deceased man? Why was he present? The narrative remained incomplete. Quentin Devereaux's face flickered in Davian's memory. A faint echo of recognition. After relentless digital sleuthing, Davian unearthed the link. Devereaux had served as a site foreman on one of Paxton's earlier, less public endeavors. Court documents detailed his conviction for a violent altercation with a former client. As dawn broke, Davian's nascent theory solidified. Paxton had engaged Devereaux for an illicit task, but the execution had tragically misfired. Now, Vera and Paxton were desperately attempting to erase their footsteps. Davian closed his secure terminal, gazing at the first pale light of sunrise. The man who had entered this space yesterday, driven by ambition and an unyielding trust, had vanished. In his stead stood a figure etched with cold resolve, a meticulous architect of truth who would not cease until every shadow was illuminated. And once the full design was laid bare, the reckoning would commence. 3 weeks elapsed. The official inquiry concluded Quentin Devereaux's demise was a justifiable act of self-defense during an attempted home invasion. Vera, a consummate actress, flawlessly performed the role of the traumatized survivor, attending public grief counseling sessions and speaking in hushed, fragile tones. To the world, Davian maintained the image of the devoted spouse, taking a leave of absence from his practice to nurture his family's recovery. Yet, within the confines of his private studio, Davian had transformed the space into a clandestine operation center. Wall-mounted screens displayed intricate diagrams, facial recognition profiles, chronological events, and an ever-expanding web of associations. Each night, after Vera's tranquilizers had taken hold, he methodically augmented his dossier. He unearthed a pattern of covert encounters between Vera and Paxton at a secluded mountain lodge, a property concealed within a labyrinthine corporate structure Davian meticulously unraveled, tracing it back to Paxton. Digital transfers indicated significant sums exchanged between Paxton and Devereaux. Most chillingly, he found recently activated life insurance policies on himself, with Vera designated as the sole recipient. The grim tableau clarified. This was no bungled theft. This was a foiled assassination. His assassination. The scheme had veered off course, resulting in Devereaux's unintended demise. Davian enlisted Maeve Rourke, a former clandestine operative now renowned as a private investigator for her absolute discretion. With her sharp, obsidian eyes and precise movements, she projected an aura of quiet efficiency, devoid of any theatrical pretense, relying instead on an extensive network. They are still orchestrating, Maeve conveyed during a hushed meeting in an anonymous, out-of-town data storage facility. Paxton has contacted an individual named Bellamy Wexler 3 times. Ex-military, dishonorably discharged. Now a high-end facilitator for difficult situations. They seek Devereaux's replacement, Davian deduced, his voice devoid of emotion. It appears so, and they're growing careless, increasingly frantic. Your wife accessed another 25,000 yesterday. Davian nodded, his expression unreadable. Continue surveillance. And Maeve, I require full recordings. Every exchange, every rendezvous. Concurrently, Davian meticulously constructed an elaborate pretense. He intimated that their current counseling was proving ineffective and proposed a radical new beginning. He shared with Vera his contemplation of an extended leave, perhaps even divesting the tainted property and embarking on a prolonged period of travel. He even brought up the topic of reevaluating their comprehensive insurance policies, observing the fleeting tremor of unease in her features. For Lena's future, he articulated softly, we must ensure her security, irrespective of circumstance. The invocation of their daughter was a precise maneuver. Lena had always been Vera's Achilles heel, the sole individual for whom she displayed genuine affection. Davian also strategically re-engaged with pivotal figures within his professional echelon, particularly those whose influence might be leveraged later. He initiated contact with Sterling Blackman, an influential property magnate with formidable political ties, who had consistently lauded Davian's structural innovations. He re-established rapport with Tessa Langdon, a formidable legal strategist renowned for her uncompromising courtroom prowess, under the guise of seeking counsel for a professional acquaintance. Most crucially, Davian cultivated an alliance with Wallace Merritt, the visionary tech magnate who had recently acquired the regional media conglomerate. Over vintage, single malt, and discussions of urban development, Davian subtly laid the foundations for relationships that would prove indispensable. Within the Lakeside Terraces venture, Davian ostentatiously endorsed Paxton's continued engagement, ostensibly overlooking the recent domestic turmoil. During site inspections, he maintained a demeanor of professional cordiality, even feigning vulnerability. At times, I contemplate if Vera secretly holds me accountable, he confided during one such encounter, observing Paxton's strained efforts to conceal his discomfort. She feels so remote. I'm concerned for our union. Paxton offered stilted reassurances, conspicuously avoiding direct gaze. That very evening, surveillance imagery captured him meeting Vera in the dimly lit periphery of a suburban wholesale outlet, discreetly handing her an untraceable cellular device. 2 months following Devereaux's death, an urgent communication arrived from Maeve. They have initiated their next phase, she declared, foregoing pleasantries. Paxton convened with Bellamy Wexler yesterday, and I just intercepted a message from your wife to Paxton. All arrangements for the mountain retreat are confirmed for this coming weekend. Davian's pulse remained unperturbed as he responded. Then our preparations are also complete. He opened his secure terminal, reviewing the culminating components of his grand design. For weeks, he had been constructing his own elaborate framework, not of engineered alloys or polished facades, but of irrefutable proof, strategic alliances, and undeniable leverage. Every minute particular had been accounted for, every potential deviation mapped. He consulted his digital calendar. 3 days until the weekend. 3 days until Vera and Paxton executed their maneuver. 3 days until Davian unveiled the precise consequences for those who dared to betray him. Friday dawned under a relentless downpour, mirroring the deliberate chill in Davian's demeanor. Over a quiet morning meal, he informed Vera that an urgent rendezvous with apprehensive investors necessitated his travel to the urban center for the Lakeside Terraces project. "I'll be quite late. Do not expect me," he stated, pressing a perfunctory kiss to her cheek, registering her subtle recoil. "Exercise caution on the roads, given the conditions," she responded, her smile a vacant gesture. Davian proceeded to his firm's high-rise, making a conspicuous entrance, fully aware that Paxton had an associate observing his activities. Once inside, he exited discreetly via a concealed service tunnel where Maeve Rourke awaited him in a nondescript vehicle. "Bellamy Wexler collected his retainer this morning," she reported as they departed. "Your wife prepared an overnight bag and informed your daughter she would be staying with her sister due to a sudden onset of stress. Paxton has cleared his schedule for the next 3 days, citing an undisclosed family crisis." Davian nodded. "The lodge? Fully compromised. Every chamber is wired for both auditory and visual capture. My operatives are maintaining a discreet perimeter. By mid-afternoon, every element was seamlessly integrated." Davian settled into a rented chalet approximately a kilometer from Paxton's secluded mountain estate, meticulously observing the live feeds across an array of high-definition monitors. At exactly 16:17, Vera's vehicle navigated the winding driveway of the lodge. Paxton greeted her with a fervent embrace before they disappeared inside. Their subsequent discourse unequivocally corroborated every suspicion. They detailed their intricate plot to orchestrate Davian's apparent self-inflicted demise the following week, leveraging fabricated financial insolvency as the compelling rationale. Paxton had already initiated the dissemination of whispers regarding Davian's supposed fiscal imprudence concerning the Lakeside Terraces development. The substantial life insurance payout would then fund their future, allowing them to emerge after a suitable period of bereavement. "Bellamy Wexler is fully briefed?" Vera inquired. "He is far more proficient than Quentin Devereaux ever proved to be," Paxton affirmed. "This time, it will be executed flawlessly." Davian observed them with the dispassionate focus of a structural engineer identifying a critical flaw. When Bellamy Wexler's vehicle appeared at 1923, Davian dispatched a pre-programmed digital command. 12 minutes subsequently, law enforcement cruisers enveloped the mountain lodge, their emergency lights strobing through the downpour. Inspector Theron, now fully apprised of the elaborate conspiracy thanks to Davian's meticulously assembled dossier, directed the arrests. Bellamy Wexler made a futile attempt to escape, but was swiftly subdued. Paxton feebly asserted the innocuous nature of the gathering, but the pervasive recording devices had captured every incriminating syllable. Vera simply sagged into a nearby armchair, her meticulously constructed veneer shattering as the inescapable reality of the ensnaring net descended upon her. As these events unfolded, Davian was simultaneously solidifying his airtight alibi with unimpeachable witnesses. He graced a high-profile philanthropic gala in the Metropolitan Core, ensuring he was prominently photographed alongside Sterling Blackman and several influential municipal dignitaries. Tessa Langdon, now comprehensively informed of the intricate case, stood poised to champion his legal standing, while Wallace Merritt guaranteed the narrative would be broadcast with precise accuracy, not as a salacious marital exposé, but as the meticulously engineered criminal enterprise it was. By the stroke of midnight, Davian was delivering his formal testimony to the authorities, embodying the role of the profoundly shocked, deeply wronged husband with such conviction that it elicited genuine expressions of sympathy from the attending officers. Yet, the true stroke of genius unfolded the subsequent day. As Davian publicly grappled with the devastating disclosure of his wife's perfidy, The voluminous evidence he had amassed unveiled a scheme far more expansive than a mere romantic entanglement gone awry. Forensic accounting revealed Paxton had systematically diverted funds from numerous large-scale urban development projects, prominently including lakeside terraces. Vera, leveraging her expertise in financial management, had facilitated the illicit transfer of these illicit gains through a complex web of phantom corporations. Their ultimate objective had not been solely Davian's demise. They sought to permanently incapacitate him because he had inadvertently unearthed critical inconsistencies within the financial ledgers of the Lakeside Terraces venture. The prosecuting attorney indicted them on charges spanning conspiracy to commit homicide, attempted murder, grand fraud, illicit financial transfers, and an extensive list of ancillary offenses. Confronted with the insurmountable repository of evidence Davian had meticulously compiled, their respective defense counsel strongly advocated for plea agreements. Paxton received a 25-year incarceration, Vera a 17-year sentence. Bellamy Wexler's extensive criminal history guaranteed a lifetime behind bars. During his interrogation, he disclosed that Quentin Devereaux had not been engaged to terminate Davian. He had been contracted to purloin sensitive architectural blueprints and proprietary financial records. Vera had fatally assaulted him during a heated dispute concerning his payment, subsequently constructing the elaborate narrative of a forced entry. 6 months hence, Davian was seated in his refurbished studio, meticulously refining the blueprints for a groundbreaking metropolitan revitalization initiative, a project destined to permanently etch his professional legend. Lena, initially shattered by her mother's perfidy, had found a newfound equilibrium through intensive counseling and her father's steadfast devotion. She now occupied a drafting table opposite him, illustrating her own nascent structural concepts, displaying the nascent aptitude that had once propelled Davian himself. His comm tablet emitted a soft chime, indicating a message from Maeve Rourke, who had transcended the role of mere operative in his life. Final appeal concluded. Vera's petition rejected. Believed you would wish to be informed. Davian sent a concise confirmation, then resumed his architectural endeavors. He experienced no surge of triumph, no sense of gratification, merely the cold, absolute conviction that equitable consequences had been rendered. The world had borne witness to the fate of those who crossed Davian Hawley. He had systematically deconstructed their machinations with the identical precision he employed in erecting his edifices, affording no space for clemency, no avenue for atonement. As dusk descended, Davian surveyed the affluent enclave he had once shared with Vera. Their affluent neighbors continued to murmur about the scandal, but their subdued conversations now carried a novel undercurrent, admiration tinged with apprehension. They had observed the profound metamorphosis of a man they believed they understood, evolving from a steamed architect to an unyielding strategist who had orchestrated the impeccable retribution without ever directly soiling his hands. Davian closed his terminal and joined Lena for the evening meal. Tomorrow would usher in new ventures, fresh complexities, and should anyone else ever presume to challenge him, they would grasp what his former wife and her conspirator had learned far too late. That Davian Hawley designed not merely structures but outcomes, and his blueprints were invariably impeccable.